Hey everyone, today we're going to take a quick tour inside of the cell, the human cell. And we're going to focus on the main components and how they relate to nutrition. So think of the cell as a small, bustling city where different parts work together to keep everything functioning smoothly. All right, let's go. First, let's start with the cell membrane. There are three primary parts to the cell, and the membrane is the outermost part. Sometimes it's referred to as the gatekeeper of the cell, and it's made up of a lipid bilayer. Basically, it's two layers of fat molecules and proteins. And this structure is very critical because it controls what enters and exits the cell. So nutrients like glucose, amino acids, and vitamins can pass through the membrane, which allows the cell to receive what it needs to create energy for the rest of the body. Not just that, but it also creates structures, enzymes, hormones, proteins. Many other functions happen inside the cell. So the cell membrane is not just a barrier, it's a selectively permeable dynamic structure. Sometimes you'll hear it called a phospholipid bilayer, and I'll explain that later. So inside the cell, there's a jelly-like substance. It's called the cytoplasm, and that fills up most of the space inside the cell. It's kind of like the cytoplasm. You think of the roads and the pathways and all the different ways that you get to the different businesses inside of the city. So this allows nutrients and molecules to move wherever they're needed. In the center, we have the nucleus, and the nucleus is the control center of the cell. It holds our DNA, which is the blueprint, the genetic blueprint for that cell. The nucleus not only directs all cellular activities, but it also plays a vital role in protein synthesis. This is essential for nutritionists because proteins are crucial in almost every bodily function. Now let's take a look at the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus. So the endoplasmic reticulum actually comes in two different styles, the rough and the smooth. So the rough endoplasmic reticulum is covered with ribosomes, which makes it look kind of bumpy. And these ribosomes are where proteins are synthesized. This is an essential process for building and repairing tissues. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum is involved in lipid metabolism and detoxification processes. Yes, if you get drunk, your smooth endoplasmic reticulum has work to do. So it helps produce fats and lipids, which are critical components of the cell membrane and very necessary for storing energy. From there, we're going to move on the proteins and the lipids with us to the Golgi apparatus. Think of the Golgi as the cell's post office, okay? It modifies, sorts, and packages proteins and lipids into vesicles, a little envelope, so that they can be transported to their final destinations inside or outside of the cell. As a nutritionist, understanding this process is crucial because it's how nutrients get processed and utilized by the body. So let's move on from the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus, and let's take a look at ribosomes and vacuoles. Ribosomes, we mentioned earlier, they're on the outside of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So they're tiny, they're small, and they either float in the cytoplasm or they're attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum. They're the cell's protein factories. They play a vital role in translating the genetic information from the nucleus through mRNA, messenger RNA, into proteins that the cell and ultimately the entire body needs to function. Then we have the vacuoles. In plant cells, they are large storage containers, but in human cells, they are smaller and serve multiple roles. Vacuoles store nutrients, waste products, and other materials to help maintain the cell's internal environment. It's kind of like the trash can or the storage bin for the cell. So for example, they can hold on to amino acids or they can store waste until it can be removed from the cell, which maintains balance. And last but not least for today, we're going to look at the mitochondria. Now, depending on which professor you studied under, you may have called it the mitochondria. So the mitochondria are called the powerhouse of the cell. My first book was written on the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria are responsible for producing energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate, which we'll call ATP from now on. So they take in nutrients like glucose and fatty acids, and then they convert them into ATP through a process called cellular respiration. And that's my wheelhouse. That's where I live. This is the energy currency of the cell, of the body. ATP powers nearly every cellular function from muscle contraction to DNA replication and everything in between. So as a nutritionist, understanding mitochondria is key because that explains how the body uses macronutrients, your carbohydrates, your fats, your proteins, to produce energy. Listen, a well-balanced diet supports healthy mitochondrial function. I am going to talk much in depth later about selective nutrient diets. But today we're talking about a well-balanced diet, okay? This in turn is going to impact overall energy levels and metabolic health. So let's wrap this up by saying that the cell is a complex system where every component has a role in nutrient processing, storage, and energy production. From the selective nature of the cell membrane, which decides what gets in, what gets out, to the energy-generating mitochondria, understanding all of these parts gives us a better grasp of how nutrition fuels life at the cellular level. It's much more than just the calories you put into your mouth. Now, I hope this overview helps you appreciate the cell's amazing functions and how they relate to nutrition, and I hope you come back for the next segment where we're going to go farther into the function of these organelles that we talked about today.